KJ Methods YouTube channel, and Happy New Year to all of you. I decided that our first video of the year should be studying and test taking tips. Since we're going for it this year and we're promising ourselves that we're going to have our real estate license, let's get a good foundation on how we should study and what kind of test taking tips we can utilize to be able to pass that real estate exam on your first try. Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to all who may be interested and to those people who are struggling to pass their real estate exam. So let's get started. All right, first topic is just going to be study tips. So the question becomes, why do you keep failing the real estate exam? Is it that you're not working hard? Nope. I doubt that that's it. Is it that you're not studying? No, I doubt that that's it. You are continually paying your money to pass this exam, but for whatever reason, you are still coming up short. So let's look at some of the reasons why I think that I've seen students continually come up short. All right, number one, the students are either unprepared or they are rushing to pass this exam. Meaning they are just taking it way too fast, all right? Or they're not fully prepared in the way that they should be. Are they studying? Sure, they're studying, but they're not fully prepared because they haven't followed like a set study schedule and made certain that they have all of the material that they need before taking the exam. So we're going to talk about that some more. Sometimes there is a lack of focus, though, as students are simply not focused in the way that they should be. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why this could occur. But a lot of it has to do with it's just too much material, right? They're not laser focused on what they need to know. The next thing is that you are not evaluating why you have failed. I believe that every state gives you a certification of passing or why you failed the exam and where you failed. We need to evaluate that document. It's not just a piece of paper, but we need to evaluate what is on that paper to let us know why we have failed the exam. And we need to make corrections in that regard. The next one would be lack of vocabulary knowledge. You are simply not understanding and memorizing your vocabulary in the way that you should. And I say memorizing because the first step here is memorization. Then we get to understanding. But before anything, you need to know this vocabulary like you know your own name. At least 90% of it, right? And so there may be about 600 or 700 words. I mean, at least you need to know 500 of those words, all right? That there is a lack of understanding or you're trying to memorize. This is what I was just talking about. Students I see all the time try to memorize answers. That is the worst way that you can study for this exam. You need to understand the concept. So your first step is memorization of the vocabulary, and then you are going to attempt to understand the concepts. In other words, you're going to take that vocabulary and apply it in a sentence. Okay, and this is what I was just talking about. Too many sources. Too many sources. Woo, I had a student the other day that was taking my program, had this program, had the other program, had this from here and that from there, and actually stated, which one should I do? You're overwhelmed. That's the problem. You have purchased an exam prep program. Mine is the KJ method. I promise you that my program has everything you need in one place. I would be remiss in charging you for something, and then after completing my program, you have to go to 10 other places. The whole goal of the KJ method was to keep you on one website so you didn't have to go to many sources for the information. And the last one would be failure to follow a study plan or studying incorrectly. This is one of the things that I tell my kids, right? They'll say, well, I did study. Yeah, but did you get an understanding? Just because you read the book doesn't mean that you read the book, right? And so you have to understand the material before you can move forward. Practice doesn't make perfect unless you're practicing the right thing. Think about it. You can keep practicing the wrong thing over and over again, and that's not going to make you any better. All right, so try these study tips. Number 1, let's set some goals and set a study schedule and stick to that study schedule. Whatever it is, I've decided I'm going to study for 2 hours each night for 2 weeks. I decided I'm going to study every other day. But whatever it is, set that study schedule and stick to it. The next thing is that you need to remain consistent in that study schedule. And also, it wouldn't be a bad idea to grab some study partners. All throughout my schooling, I had study partners. I loved having study groups. We had fun during the study groups, but we're also answering questions, and it just didn't feel like studying because you became friends with people and you were bantering back and forth with concepts, and it leads to a greater understanding. Find a quiet place free from distractions. I don't know. Today, everyone is distracted, right? I've given students tests, like online tests. I say, you have an hour to do this test. And you know what happens? They don't complete the test. They said the mailman came, this person came, the other person came. No, if you have something to do, then you need to be strict in utilizing the time to do that thing. Study in shorter spurts. Sometimes students have difficulty retaining information. One of the things that you could do is study for, let's say, 40 minutes, and then take 20 minutes off. Then study another 40 minutes, take another 20 minutes off. Another thing that I do when I was in school, I would study very, very early in the morning because no one is distracting me at that time. Learn and understand the material before moving on. KJ Method is done in modules. I see students all the time. They're in module 5. They're in module 8. But they haven't mastered modules 1 through 6. Why is that? You should be studying in a way that you're mastering the topic before, not just moving through the material. Can you teach this material to someone else, right? That's really important. If you can teach it to someone else, chances are you really know the material. So try that. Try teaching it to someone else. And then don't study in bed and clear your area. Now, I know some people study in bed, some people study where there's a wreck in front of them. For me, in order for me to focus on that one thing, I need my area to be clear, and I need to be sitting up, focused, and ready to study. In the bed, I think my brain is saying, why don't you take a nap? And I'm not doing as good a job at studying. The number 1 study tip. That seems simple, right? Know what's on your exam. Know what is on your exam. I know that seems very simple. What is the score that you need for the exam? How many questions are there on the exam? Does your exam do just a state exam? Does your exam do a national exam? Does your exam do a combination of both? And what are the content areas that you need for the exam? Did you guys know that pretty much every state puts out a content outline for their exam? Try it. Try Googling real estate exam outline and then put your state there and see. I did a quick Google search and I pulled these 2 up. Just so you know that there are 2 pretty much more popular administrators of the test. It's either PSI or Pearson VUE. There are others, but those are primarily the big testers for most of the states in the country. And I happened to just Google it. And so on the left-hand side, I pulled up one state. It's 100 questions on their national portion of the exam. The other state, there was 140 national questions. That state on the left, it could have a total of 200 questions maybe, or just 100 national questions, or 125 questions, which means that it would have 100 national and maybe 25 state. And so you would just have to look and see what your state does. But yeah, there's an outline and you should know what is on that outline because those are the testing areas that you're going to be responsible for. All right, study tip number 2, vocab. You gotta know your vocab. I am so adamant about this. So much so that I'm going to say to you, it's impossible for you to pass the real estate exam if you do not know your vocab. As I stated, there's probably at least 500 words that you should know, depending upon where you're located. And I will go so far as to say to you, you cannot pass the exam without knowing your vocab. What I love about the vocab is this, though. These exams are generally like easy questions and then harder questions, right? Straight vocab questions and then kind of like reasoning questions. Well, straight vocab, if you know it, you're going to be able to get that answer correct. And that's going to get you to 30 to 40% of your test. Some tests even more than that, depending on who administers the test. But knowing your vocab also helps in other ways. It helps you to say, that's not that answer. That's not that answer. That's not that answer. Oh, it's that one. And so you don't know an answer, but you know your vocab. And so it helps you with process of elimination. So again, there is no way that you can pass this test without knowing your vocab. All right, study tip number 3. This one seems intuitive, but it happens all the time. Don't schedule your exam until you're ready. Why are people scheduling the exam? So what I get all the time is, my exam's next Friday. Can you help me? Well, it should be the other way around, right? You should make sure you're ready and then you schedule your exam. I have some funny questions here, right? Would you go to war without a gun? Would you go to a job interview without having done your research? Would you go on vacation without money? Or would you travel out of the country without a passport? So the answer to all of those are probably no, right? Because it goes to preparation. So then why would you take the real estate exam without being fully prepared? There is no problem with rescheduling your test if you need to, or not even scheduling until you know that you're ready to take your test. Some students get a little stuck on this. They go, oh, I already paid my money, so I'm going to take it. Well, just check in your state to see, do they have a way for you to reschedule for free? Some states do, some states do not. You would have to check in your particular state. All right, so some test taking tips. Let's just go over these real quick. All right, time management. Watch your time, but be sure to use all of the time. I see so many students, they have 4 hours and they take the test in 2 hours and they fail the test. You need to have time to really read these questions and to be able to go over the questions to see what errors that you made. If you did make any errors, maybe you didn't make any errors, but you should be able to pass through that test another time. You're going to divide the number of questions that you have by the time given. That'll tell you approximately how long you have on each question. I want you to move through the questions pretty rapidly for those easy vocab ones, right? That's the other reason why you got to know that vocab. You're going to move through it pretty rapidly, but you're not going to make errors. You got to make sure that you're reading carefully. But then you're going to take whatever that time was, right, that you didn't use, and be able to move it to the next question, particularly the math, right, which takes a little longer to do. All right, answering questions. Let's just go over a couple of tips here. Read every word in the question. The examiners are trying to tell you something and lead you to an answer. Often, students will ignore the words as if they have no meaning, right? All of the above, most of the time, those have meaning. They're there for a reason. You cannot skip words in order to answer the question correctly. Next one is to read that last sentence in the question twice. In order for you to be able to appropriately answer a question, you need to know what is being asked. that last sentence is kind of like the meat and potatoes of what they are asking you. Okay, next thing. Read all of the answer choices before selecting one. This also seems really easy, but it is not. I have so many students who pick the answer, right? They see the answer, they're like, oh, I'm going to get that answer, but they forgot to read through the rest of the answers. Couldn't it be A and C? Couldn't it be all of the above? And so if it's all of the above, then you're going to go down to D. So you have to make certain to read all the answer choices before picking the appropriate answer. Okay, the next thing is immediately cross out, and there are generally two answers that are incorrect. Immediately cross those out, particularly if you're lucky enough to take your exam on paper. I say lucky enough, right? Because if I have an option, I'm taking mine on paper because I'm able to cross out. So I don't even see those answers any longer. And now I have the two left, and this is where that vocabulary really kicks in if you know it well, in order to be able to pick the appropriate answer. All right, so that's it for this video. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to do a part 2 so that you can understand how KJ Method really does help you with all of these. We are not just an exam prep program. We are an exam prep program, but I also teach you study skills and test taking skills because I think that it's vitally important to put all of this together in order to pass your exam. So once again, thank you for coming by the KJ Methods YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to all who may be taking the real estate exam. See you next time.